Futur Antérieur, Future Perfect in French with FrenchSpanishOnline.com. Definition. We call it antérieur because it means previous, before. So the futur antérieur describes an event or a state in the future, but occurring before another event or state in the future too. Let's take our timeline. Here we have got our arrow, so here it's the present tense. We have a first event in the future, but if you have a second one occurring just before the first one, here in English and in French we need le futur antérieur or future perfect. So it's what we are going to see first in English. So let's keep in mind our timeline. So first, an English example, you will have finished your homework when I arrive. You understand that here, when I arrive, even if in English you use the present tense, it's a future event because you're not yet arrived. So when I arrive is this part of our sentence, the future event. And just before that, you will have finished your homework. So it's a second event in the future too, but occurring before the second part of the sentence. That's why in English and in French you use the futur antérieur or future perfect, and here you can say it in English, the future perfect, first with the future of the auxiliary verb, will have, and the past participle of your verb, will have finished, future perfect. And fortunately, it's the same thing in French. Le futur antérieur is le futur simple, future simple, of the auxiliary verb and the past participle of the verb. Don't forget that in French we have two auxiliary verbs, the verb to have, avoir, and the verb to be, être. If you don't remember which one you need, actually, if you want to translate correctly the sentence, you can have a look again to the lesson about the passé composé in French. So let's take the same example now in French. Tu auras terminé tes devoirs, you will have finished your homework, quand j'arriverai, when I arrive. As you can see, in French too, we need the futur antérieur, the future perfect, exactly the same thing, the future of the auxiliary verb, aura, and the past participle, terminé, and that's all. However, there is a difference between these two sentences, and we are going to see this now. You remember that here, when you say you'll have finished your homework when I arrive, we use the present tense after expression like when in English. But in French, because it's a future event, we use the future tense, or you can also use the future perfect if you want. So here, it's a future tense after quand. So you need to know that after some expressions related to time, like when, quand, once, une fois que, once, when, lorsque, or to translate as soon as, dès que, or aussitôt que, if you are speaking about a future event in French, you need the future or the future perfect after these expressions. Let's take some example to understand it better and to see the difference between the two languages. Once I have arrived, you will leave. So let's take our timeline. You will leave is our future event, but just before you will leave, I have arrived. Okay, so this part of the sentence is also a future event, but occurring just before the second part. If in English you don't need the future perfect, in French you need it after once. So that's why you will translate une fois que je serai arrivé, tu partiras. As you can see here, the auxiliary verb for the verb arriver is the verb to be. So we say je serai arrivé, but exactly the same thing. Okay? Another example now after the expression as soon as. You will come as soon as you have finished. Again, you will come is our future event, and just before you will come, actually, you have finished. Okay? So this second part is also in the future, but taking place just before the first part of your sentence. So that's why in French we need the future perfect. Tu viendras dès que tu auras fini. Here, aura fini. You can see the futur antérieur. As soon as you have calmed down, I will explain the situation again. After the expression as soon as in English, you don't have the future perfect, but you can understand that we need it in French because this second part of the sentence, I will explain the situation, is your future event, and the second part is also in the future but occurring just before the second part. As soon as you have calmed down. For this reason, in French, we use the future perfect. Dès que tu te seras calmé, je t'expliquerai la situation. Sera calmé, le futur antérieur. Another example with the verb to be and the future perfect in English too. In 2 weeks, she'll have left. So in 2 weeks is our future event, and she'll have left, the future perfect in English. So if you have the future perfect in English, you will have in French too. Dans 2 semaines, elle sera partie. Here, you remember, because the auxiliary verb is a verb to be, there is an agreement between the past participle and the subject. Here the subject is a female, she, so you need a E at the end of the past participle in this example. So to summarize what we have just seen in the first part of this lesson, if you have the future perfect in English, you will have it in French too, but we call it le futur antérieur. Also, after expressions like when, as soon as, once, if we are speaking about an event in the future, of course, you will need the future tense or the future perfect in French. Okay, even if you don't need it in English. As a second part, we are going to go a bit further to show you how we can use the future perfect also in French to translate the verb must. Let's see 2 examples. The first one, he did not come to his appointment, he must have forgotten. He must have forgotten. So if you remember the lesson about the modal verbs in French, you remember that we can translate using a modal verb too, saying il n'est pas venu au rendez-vous, il a dû oublier. And this is perfect French. But we can also use le futur antérieur to translate this sentence, saying il n'est pas venu au rendez-vous, il aura oublié. And this is perfect in French too. This is totally correct. Il n'est pas venu au rendez-vous, il aura oublié. As you can see here, it's a past event and we use the future perfect. Okay? Another example. She did not find her umbrella. She must have lost it in the bus. Elle n'a pas trouvé son parapluie. Elle a dû le perdre dans le bus. Is the perfect translation. But again, if you want to use the future perfect in French, elle n'a pas trouvé son parapluie. Elle l'aura perdu dans le bus. As you can see here, we can remember our timeline actually. Elle n'a pas trouvé son parapluie is the first event. Elle l'aura perdu, so before, dans le bus. So here we use the future perfect for a past event. Okay? C'est fini. Et voilà. Thank you for watching this slide with me. I hope now you understand better how to use le futur antérieur, the future perfect in French. If you want to have the total script of this lesson, you can go to this address at our free website, FrenchSpanishOnline.com. Thank you. Bye-bye.